Hello, everyone. Welcome. Wow, we are getting there. We are on part 7 today. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's live stream. I'm really excited about this one. I know I'm excited about all the topics. But yes, we're here doing part 7. Part 7 of our cosmic maps. This is like a live video series that I'm doing. There are 2 more episodes to go. Really excited. Yes, for the entire live series and also for today. Right, so say hello when you join me. Let me know that you're here. Today we're doing ancestral lineage healing. And if you've been in this community for a couple of years, you know this is one of my favorite topics. It's one of my specialties. Really passionate about ancestral lineage healing and just what it represents for all of us, right? And the potential that it has in restoring our ancestral wealth. So today's topic is about energy medicine for restoring ancestral wealth. Hello, Queen. Hello, Letsatsi. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I'm so excited to have you all here with me. Hello, Hendrik. So good to have you here. Right. So, yes, so today we are going to be diving deep into that conversation of ancestral lineage healing. And if you have any questions along the way, please feel free to ask those questions in the queue. I mean, it's a question mark. I don't know how it looks when you're watching. But yeah, you can use that for that. Hello, Roy. Hello, Henry. Hello, Tobile. It's so good to see you all. Tokozani, everyone. Yes, so ancestral lineage healing. It's a very hot topic right now. Also a very important topic if we are on this journey. So as usual, I like to bring my perspective, and sometimes my perspective is a little different and maybe it sounds new, right? So I invite you to just be open to a different perspective, right, on how we can do ancestral lineage healing, right? Yes. And feel free to communicate with me throughout. I always enjoy your commentaries, your comments as we're doing this. Okay. So let's dive into this conversation of ancestral lineage healing, right? I have created many courses that are focusing on ancestral lineage healing along the years, and even now, majority of the courses that I'm doing are centered on ancestral lineage healing. The Lineage Liberators membership is focusing on that. Although, of course, it also includes other forms of healing, soul healing, inner child healing as well. But because I specialize in lineage healing, there's going to be that, as well as the Lineage Liberation Apprenticeship Program, which is for healers. It's for teaching energy medicine, right, or quantum healing, or bioregenesis. Very fancy titles, but they just mean that we're working with spiritual energies. Instead of focusing on physical processes for healing. It doesn't mean that I don't do physical processes in my ancestral healing. It just means that I have a keen understanding of energy medicine. I specialize in that. Right. So ancestral lineage healing. Last episode we're talking about ancestral curses, and highly recommend that you watch that if you haven't, just so you can understand why we even have to do ancestral lineage healing in the first place, right? What we have already registered is that every one of us, we have inherited certain patterns from our ancestors, right? And from the people before us. So what I'm going to do to begin off, I want to share a story my personal story of ancestral lineage healing, and we can take it from there, and just maybe then you can see how energy medicine is a part of that. Right. So a couple of years back, at the very beginning, my first year of being a priestess and oracle, right, I had a session with my mentor who, in that conversation, highlighted to me that, I think I was like 27 years old at the time. He was asking me about the status of my relationship, right? And I was like, oh, I'm not married. And he was asking me why. And long story short, he highlighted to me that at 27 years old and not being in a marriage is something for me to think about, that it may not be as natural or normal as I thought. Because for me, I was just like, I'm just a kid. Why are you asking me about marriage, right? And after that, that stayed with me, because I realized that not only was this my status, it was also a lot of my cousins were also unmarried. And in fact, when I really look even at my mother's generation, a lot of those people were also, particularly the women, were unmarried. Or if they did get married, they will eventually get divorced. Right. So this was the first time I ever really started to understand, when we're talking about an ancestral pattern, what that looks like. Right. So it's easy to see a case to think of it like in a very dark way, but it can be as simple as, why aren't the people of this family getting married? Why aren't the women? What's interesting for me was that the men were married, but the women were not. And what was disturbing for me with my conversation with my mentor was actually my thoughts and my beliefs at the time, where I recognized that within my consciousness, I actually thought it was normal to be unmarried at 27. And it's not to say it's not. It's just the level of disconnection I felt within my being when he was asking. I was just really deeply surprised. I was like, why is he asking this? Right? And so that stayed with me, just the level of disconnection I felt. And it's also a certain level of disconnection I have felt also in relationship with money, right? But the relationship was really big for me, because not only was I unmarried, but I was chronically single. And chronically single meaning single for years. And I was unbothered by that. I was okay. My friends were bothered, but I was okay, right? So it was during that period that I really started to contemplate on what the implications are, right? That there is this pattern that's happening all across my lineages, and we have just never really thought about it. Has never been any level of concern coming from my parents. They've never felt like, oh, this is really strange that two of our beautiful girls are chronically single all the time, right? So that's when I started to interrogate this, and I started to actually commune with my spirit, my higher self, my spirit really, and commune with my guardians, my ancestors, and so forth, right? And this was the beginning of me working with the collective of my grandmothers, the divine grandmothers. And it was through here that I connected with 3 grandmothers who were coming from both my mother and my father's side. And they really started to show me in spirit, in my journeys, just the patterns of disconnections that were happening between the women and men, in particularly in my mother's lineage. My father's lineage was way better, right? Kalanga people are really still family oriented, but I come from, like, my mother's people, the Tsopong tribe, think they're a bit chill about marriage. And so in that conversations with the grandmothers, I started to really realize that, oh, this is something I inherited, like the level of disconnection and just being very unbothered was something that my mother also kind of was, that was her approach. That was the approach of all my aunties. So I picked this up. It wasn't just a random thing. It was something I took by observing all the women around me as a child. My grandfather, my maternal grandfather died when my mom was young. So My grandmother was a widow. Was it widower? Yes. Yes. And so I didn't see a grandfather growing up when I was living my grandmother's side, my mother's side. Although from my father's side, interestingly today, my great-grandmother from my father's side was telling me, but you do know that you inherited a gift of marriage from our side. Yeah. So in that journey of exploring, like, why is this a pattern, right? I started to travel within my ancestral memories and started to meet different aspects of the grandmother. Some of them I didn't know, and started to collect and hear and experience memories of other people before who things happened to them that really changed how they related with the masculine. And one time I actually went into my ancestral hills, the hills of my ancestors. They are called the Zopong Hills. And I went there as part of like my work as a healer. And I was there in the mountains and the waterfall. And I was just listening to the waters, and I had a spontaneous journey by the water. And I time traveled almost 7 generations back. I didn't even know I could do that. And met a grandmother who was the beginning of this pattern or this curse. And I can still see her face even now, like even as I'm speaking. And she was a grandmother who was taken from her land and taken as a slave, wife, slave. And we understand what that meant, right? And so the child that was born from her being a slave was not born out of love, but just out of pain. And she showed me a vow she made when she got pregnant with that child. And it was really a vow that like her womb will literally reject the masculine, that which comes from her womb. And obviously when she was saying this, she didn't really know the impact of what she was saying, right? And after that, I also realized that not only did the women in my family not get unmarried, but they really often had womb issues, right? And few children as well. And some didn't have children, right? And that was the first time I ever interacted with something called an ancestral covenant. A covenant is something that an ancestor in the lineage, they make a vow. It could be with themselves, it could be with a divine force or an anti-divine force. And that covenant is so strong, particularly because it comes from pain, that it ripples out through the entire blood and takes over and creates a new pattern and a new frequency of how moving forward those who will come from that blood will start to act as if that vow, that covenant is natural. So it is then that I, as a descendant of that woman, that grandmother, I thought it was normal to not be super moved by wanting to be in relationships, right? And just seeing also the patterns that was happening with everyone around me, right? And it was in that hill in the middle of the waterfall that I experienced my first ever energy healing. Because then out of the blue, one of my grandfather, who was a guardian, showed me, like, we are going to heal with this grandmother. And so me and this grandmother, we started to really live through her pain. And I was crying as if it's happening to me, you know. I lived through the pain that she went through after being taken from her home and being a slave and being forced to have children. It was actually one child. After that, she literally told her womb to never give birth. And she never gave birth, only that one child, who then became my ancestor, though. And I cried so deeply because it's like I was there. I was her. Part of me was her, you know. And I felt the pain of just being separated from home, being forced, being in that painful experience. And asked her to release this covenant after she saw the impact of her covenant in all her children, the descendants, including me. I asked her to release this vow, right? And she released that vow. It was so profound. This was a 2-hour journey that I spontaneously did. Some part of it, of course, was that I was initiated and I was taught by other people. So, of course, that influenced my ability to be able to do that. But what was interesting for me was how much I had to feel her pain before the vow could be released. And it wasn't instant. She wasn't like, yes, let's release the vow. Her spirit needed her pain to be witnessed, to be felt, to be released before. And that was what was her truth, that she had died in that land. She never went back home. So she died with the pain. And that pain continued to live in her descendants, particularly the women, right? Because she had the womb. And so all the wombs after that, right, held that same pain, right? And so I drank the water from the river to continue to cleanse. I did an activation now that I call the sacred code of 777, where you heal going all the way 7 generations behind, which she taught me how to do, which the ancestors showed me. Like, you must heal beyond yourself. You must go back, because your pain today, the patterns you're seeing, some of which you don't even think are issues, they go way back. And after that, this was 2019. After that, I went through the most painful experiences of my life, where I started to see all these patterns that have been playing out in my relationships with the masculine. My relationship with, obviously, my father being the first masculine, and partners in the past. And I started healing that. I started processing all the heartbreak, all the grief, all the other times, and started to notice my own vows that I have created, that I walked with into every relationships, right? And one of the vows was that there is fundamentally something wrong with me. And I couldn't pinpoint this until I met that grandmother, and I understood why that would be a thought deep within my psyche that I might be holding, because in my lineage, there was a trauma that was so big that made that grandmother feel like there's something inherently wrong with her, that we inherited that belief, that idea from her. And then I used to tell my physical trainer, I was like, my body issues are not because I am not hardworking, I am not interested in actually losing weight. There is a part of me that feels like I'm protecting myself with my body, right? I feel unsafe in the world. I feel like something violent could happen to me. So if I am like this, I'm stronger. I can also hide in plain sight. I won't also get the attraction of men. All of these was playing in my subconscious, but it was inherited belief systems, right? And I had to deal with that. I had to heal that. And that was ancestral healing, because it was not a thought I had by myself. It was a thought I had inherited. And so that's when I started to understand what ancestral lineage healing is. From there on, I have since come to expand that event, that healing in the Zopong Hills, to protocols that I now do with my clients that honestly blow my mind away, because I can't believe we can go that deep into the spirit realm, and we have the power to actually change things that have been happening in a family for a really long time, but that is ancestral healing. That is what's possible, right? Even though I was working with the elements, the mountains really helped me to travel so fast, so far back. The waters that I drank also helped. And from there on, of course, I ended up being in a sacred union with, honestly, it can actually freaks me out how much my divine partner is like fits all the things I had written I need in a partner. But that only was possible because I did healing. And one of the healings I had to do was my detachment from whether I want a union or not. I had to be like, I want love. And actually, it is my ancestors' divine right to have love. For women in my family to experience love, it is our wealth, right? However, I understood that in the years before I started to work on my relationships, my spiritually, ancestrally, our wealth when it came to love and sacred relationships, you could say our family, we were bankrupt. And that's why relationships wouldn't work out, because the covenant made us bankrupt. God's energy could not move into our DNA. We couldn't magnetize relationships, and even if we did, they will always fall off because our wealth was drained by trauma that had happened, and obviously consequent ones that happened after that, right? I'm not taking into consideration, I'm not even talking about my own parents and grandmothers that I knew when I was growing up. I'm talking about just the beginning story of where did it start, where did it go wrong, right? When did it start to change for your lineage? And that's a question we need to do. We need to ask, when did it all start, right? Whatever that issue is, there is an origin point. There is an original ancestor who experienced something that changed the trajectory of your lineage. The wealth of your lineage changed, right? So when I'm saying my family was spiritually bankrupt in love, think of it just like here, when you have money and when you overuse that money to the point where there's nothing and you're so bankrupt, right? It's also that sometimes you can also get bankrupt because people steal from you. People take your money or you misuse that money, right? And after that, it's very difficult to do anything, right? So for my family, we had lived in scarcity of love and love relationships, and to the point where we went into survival mode and we just told ourselves, we don't want it. It doesn't matter. We are unbothered by it, which is why at 27, I was unbothered by the status of my relationship, because it was a defense mechanism that my lineage took out of scarcity of love. The women had to go into self-preservation mode and they told themselves, we are okay being alone. But it is not organic order, or it's not natural order, natural law for us to not be in union. It is our divine right to be in union, in healthy unions as humanity, right? So when you start to understand this, that things that are happening to you, there's a bigger story, and we must interrogate that. And we have the ability with our consciousness, your soul can travel through time and it can access this information, and we can do that healing in the moment where the fracture happened, where the pain happened, where the trauma happened. Because if we don't uproot from the source, it's going to keep repeating, right? And so for me, it took me 3 years of consistently working on my relationship patterns. Even after that healing that I did among the heals, I still had to work on it, because you see, not only do you inherit the curse, that curse mutates and it becomes part of you. That you start to think that it is you and it's natural. And you don't know where it begins and where you end. So we can heal you. We can put you through all the rites. You can go to the river. But if you don't understand that curse happened in your mind, it happened in the emotional body, it happened in the physical body. This is why I told you that my body weight was related to lack of love in the lineage. It also happens in the spirit. So when we address only one thing, if we take you to the hill, to the river, a new birth. We're addressing this spiritually, and that's really powerful, and it can change things. But most people can't maintain the healing. And I can't tell you how many times God, my guides, have told me, Joy, you already received what you asked. You are just not taking it. We gave it to you. The prayer is answered, but you can't experience it because a part of you doesn't feel you are worthy. A part of you has lived in scarcity for so long that you actually crash. Your nervous system cannot hold this new thing you've asked for, right? And that's why, it's like you are not being answered, but you have. Your ancestors are answering you. God is answering you. Your guidance are answering you. Christ is answering you. But you can't believe it, which is why it's interesting because, as I've spoken in the past, I love energy medicine because energy medicine allows you to look into the mind. And the mind is where we store all things. And this is the lower mind and the higher mind. We have a lower mind, and the lower mind is the part that's holding all the fears, all the scarcity, all the stories, all the covenants, all the curses that are here in the lower mind. And our higher mind knows the true story. It holds our wealth, our ancestral wealth. And we need to reconcile these two minds. And in fact, the higher mind must override the lower mind and override and overwrite, right? So that you literally start to create your reality from your higher mind. When we believe these curses and we hold them in the lower mind, we will literally see ourselves repeating the same patterns, the same experiences over and over again, right? So when that happens, it feels like healing doesn't work. The indigenous practices, they don't work. Now, I want to share a little bit about that. Like in my work, as much as I am a quantum healer, I cannot just really speak about the power of our indigenous healing modalities of healing, of ancestral healing. The first time I was ever cleansed by a healer, there's nothing like it, honestly. And particularly, I don't know, the waters, as a water child, but also there was something very primordial, very primal that speaks to my human, just literally doing the rituals and the ceremonies and invocations and prayers in my language. Something happens to the DNA. It wakes up, right? And this is why these rituals and ceremonies have survived this long. And the conversations of what are the right ceremonies, the ones aligned with God and Christ, that's a conversation to have. But really the way to ground that in is to always invite God into the space, because so many of us, when we awaken, especially, it doesn't matter what spiritual system you are in, I notice that we tend to forget the Godhead, and the Godhead is the supreme healer of all. So grounding your healing and your rituals with God and calling God into the space, having the mind of God be there, merging your mind with the mind of God, it changes the game. Even it changes the game when we do that for our ancestors, that made the minds of our ancestors be filled with the mind of God. That changes the game, right? So in ancestral lineage healing, there is a need and importance of us doing these physical cleanses. For me, I am a clear empath. And what that means is that I'm able to feel what other people are feeling, but also more than anything, I'm able to feel something called metatronic reversals, which is whenever there is a dark shadow, energy, spirit attachment in a person, I feel that and I actually get really sick, which means my life is actually a little difficult, especially in terms of going out, because I'm constantly feeling this for people. And honestly, before I became a healer, I didn't know. And now all the time, all I want to tell people is, can you please cleanse once a month? just once a month, pour some sea salt, some water, and just cleanse, because grief, pain that you go through every month, it doesn't disappear. It accumulates and creates a force field around you, an overlay, something that kind of covers your spirit, and it's like it attaches to it, and it is what reduces your mood, your well-being. Oh my God, I hope that the internet stays. Right? Your well-being. Right? And so you must cleanse all the time. And then when we are talking about energy medicine, this is about us addressing the mind and addressing the emotional body. Whatever we are doing in terms of ancestral healing, we must also understand that there is mental deprogramming. We have to reprogram ourselves from thinking the way we used to think differently. And that's not something you get by just affirmations alone. It's something you actually have to work on, right? And there are modalities for that, for changing the brain pathways, the neural pathways that are in your field that create the thoughts that you have, the belief systems that you have. This is not something you just override with an affirmation. It's something you have to work on consistently, and it takes time, right? Which is why, like I said, I always do my offers this long because of how long it takes, right? And a lot of our issues, particularly in African spirituality, this has been so heavy for me, is our belief system. So many of us, we have faulty belief systems that inherently perpetuate curses. We are constantly creating spells on ourselves, on our lives. And this has a lot to do with our history, what has happened to us, where we had been told we are inferior. And that is your belief system now. Whether you're conscious of it or not, it could be running at the back of your field. And this is why things keep collapsing, because you have not looked into what you believe. And so ancestral lineage healing requires that we change our belief system. You have to change to, we are deserving of love in my family. This is my prayer now. And also just go into the aspects of the self that went through heartbreak and healing those aspects of the self. Right? I'm a little nervous that this rain is going to change. So if I got disconnected, I will restart again. Come join. I will try. So, quantum healing, bioregenesis. So this is a modality that I am utilizing. I was trained by two amazing mentors on quantum healing and bioregenesis. Actually, three. And I honestly can't really explain it. It's something that you have to experience. But through energy medicine, we are able to actually travel to the spirit realm, and we are able to intervene, do intercession in your behalf, in your lineage's behalf, and to work with divine forces to rewrite the covenants, the vows, the curses, to do that healing using the Christ impulse, the Christ force, the divine force. And the thing is, what people may not know, it takes energy to travel to the spirit realm on the behalf of your healer. And then it requires that I, as Joy Muhami, I need to have enough of the Christ energy to even do that for you. This is deep, deep work. That means I constantly have to be healing myself to be able to heal other people. And that process of going and intercessing for you in your behalf has the potential to rewrite those curses for your lineage. But when we're really talking about sovereign ways of working, I don't do this without you coming with me there, without your lineage coming with me there. And so it's not happening through my body, it's happening through your body. I'm just an intercessor and a vessel who is traveling. Sometimes your consciousness cannot do what I am doing, but if you are with me, I connect to your spirit, and our spirits travel together. And in our traveling together, we are able to rewrite and collect the fragments of your ancestors, the fragments of your soul that are lost in time because of pain and trauma. Right? So that's what energy medicine is. It's a deep, it's actually an ancient process, right? I keep forgetting this. My student had told me what it's called in Sesotho, actually, I think. And I was like, oh, I didn't know. Even our people have been doing it, where those healers who could sit next to you and they literally, through interfacing, be next to you, they can feel your energy and do the healing. They can heal your diseases, whatever cases you are carrying. So this was the way that my great-grandfather healed. I didn't even know that. And that's how I heal now. I travel in your behalf, in the behalf of your lineage, to restore your ancestral wealth. As I mentioned, when we are spiritually bankrupt, there are certain things we can't do. And sometimes you are not able to heal or change a pattern because you are bankrupt as a family, in that there's not enough energy. This is why God has created prophets, priestesses, shamans, oracles, messengers. These people are given almost a boost by the spirit realm to be able to heal sometimes for lineages in people's behalves. Right? So this is in the conversation of, can you heal your ancestral lineage? Yes, as a being, yes, you can, right? But it requires spiritual wealth. You actually have to be able to have that Christ energy in you. Your heart has to be pure. You have to, like even your spirit, all of the things, they have to be purified, right? And so this is why sometimes we're seeing ourselves not healing, because if the heart is not, if we have not removed the hate and the pain in our hearts, it makes it very difficult to actually heal and to receive love. If we have not restructured our belief systems, we have not restructured the brain, it makes it hard, right? So this is what you may be facing if you are like, I'm a non-healer, I want to heal ancestrally, my ancestral lineages and patterns. It feels heavy because it is heavy. You don't have the manpower, the capacity, the energy to lift the 20 kg of your lineage miasma patterns. That's what's happening, right? So, yeah. So when I started my journey as a priestess, you know, I found it very interesting that all my healers, they will always call the Christ and they call God. I wasn't fazed by the God, calling God into the space, but the Christ was really interesting to me. I was like, well, what's up with that? Every single one of them. Like, okay, was not expecting this to happen until I started to understand what the true Christ is and how we heal with the Christ energy, with the Christ spirit. It's in a way what they meant by Christ is the way, the truth, and I always forget that line, but yeah. So that Christ energy is important. If you've been trying to heal and it's like you can't, it feels difficult, it's not moving, it's because the Christ energy is not cultivated yet. So you need to cultivate that first. I'm also speaking to healers. If we do not heal with the divine forces and the true forces of the divine, our healing work will always somehow feel heavy and unsustainable or not regenerative for our clients, you know. And so our relationship with God has to be, you literally have to deal with the wound you have about God, about Christ. You have to address that to do ancestral lineage healing, because ultimately that's the highest form of healing. Right, so this is why you find me talking about God and Christ, because I realized in my journey I can't heal anyone without God. I'm not even healing, honestly. It's God healing. I'm just a vessel for that process. I'm just a guardian. I'm just facilitating something that you can innately do for yourself, but you may not know how to do it depending on where you are in your spiritual journey. Right? So I have been on this journey since 2009. I have been a healing artist. I was first trained as a psychologist from 2009. So 13 years in the journey of healing. And I'm still learning so many things, right? So I just sometimes want to explain this to people, because I think there's this level of lack of wanting to accept the the differences of where we are and accepting that I'm just starting, I may need support, right? Even for me, I'm constantly needing support. I'm constantly like, oh my God, how do we heal this? And so this is why I always have mentorship happening at every stage of my life to understand and to grow, right? Yes. So energy medicine is working with the quantum field, with the Christ energy. The quantum field is the point where the mind of God begins and where the heart of God begins. And we have to go there. As a lineage, the entire lineage has to go to the quantum field. We can't heal in the physical earth because our earth body is also going through its own reparation. So we have to go to the spirit realm to heal there. Right? So that's what energy medicine is about. I personally do it. I combine this with indigenous practices, but the core of my work is working in the spirit realm. Hope that makes sense. Let me check out the questions, because I am like, so does one need to be a healer to do ancestral lineage healing? So you don't necessarily need to be a healer. There are things you can begin, right? This cleansing once a month is a thing you can begin to do. Like, it doesn't even have to be about ancestral healing. You as an individual, this is part of spiritual 101, like spiritual practices 101. You have to do this, right? In my school, my students, they have meditations that they do every day that I tell them that they have to do this to build that body of Christ. And journeys for every single covenant you could ever issue you have ancestrally. I have modalities and journeys for that and activations for that, right? DNA activations for that. Right. But you as an individual, please cleanse. And my friend was telling me something this weekend, and I was asking her, does she ever, I don't remember what I said, but I asked if she ever, so besides cleansing, what else do you do? And she's like, oh, I just do that. And I said, but you can't just do that. You still have to address the pain in the body and the pain in the heart and the pain in the mind. Because these are things you feel. You ever feel pain in your heart? It's there. You can feel the block. That block you can wash all you want. It's not going to go until you process that. So this is what ukupatla is. Upatla, right? To commune with your guardians is to deal with this. To work with other tools to process your pain. Right? So this includes just, if you're going through a pain, learn to sit down, to go pray, call your guys and talk to them about the pain that you're going through. And listen after to hear what they recommend as a part of your healing. They will tell you. It may take time, sometime, not even a long time, but some time for you to start getting those guidance, to hear them, because they're always giving you, right? But we need to learn to listen to spirit. You can't just cleanse and then go. You can't just listen to joy and go. How would your spirit team talk to you? They need to talk to you. So you have to approach it as if it's a real council of your elders. You go to them, you tell them, I am struggling with this today, and you can pour your whole heart and process and cry and do all the things, and then listen. This is what they mean by meditation. 15 minutes of you listening. We can't just patla and call them and tell them our problems and then we're out. We have to listen, right? So that's one of the other things that I will highly encourage. You patla and you meditate. To meditate isn't to keep quiet. Like, ooh, I'm quiet. But it's you speak and then you listen to yourself. You've ever listened to yourself? Like, whatever that is, if you've ever been in a long ride home, in a bus, in a car at home, all the way home, there's a moment where you arrive into stillness. You're looking outside in the moving scenery, and there's a peace within you, a contemplation. That's what listening is. That's what meditation is, right? You don't have to force it. You already naturally know how to meditate. It's to just listen to the self. Right? When you listen to yourself, you will start to hear the voice of spirit. God will speak to you. The guidance will speak to you. Your spirit will speak to you. Right? So if we can begin there, then we've got something to start with. Right? And I highly also recommend just African people, we have lived in scarcity for so long that we actually think our way of life is the normal way of life. So because of that, we rarely ever ask for help. Because of that, part of my work, and this has been so painful for me because I've been doing this for 13 years now, I've had to overly communicate that you deserve to be helped, that I've had to convince you to come and heal. And sometimes you're not healed, not because you don't have the resources, but because you really think you can do it by yourself. I want to invite you to know that that might be what we call scarcity consciousness. We have lived with lack for such a long time, lack of resources, psychological resources, emotional resources, spiritual resources, that we've had to survive and just get by. But if you have the ability at any point in your life to just make a little bit more, part of restoring ancestral wealth is to literally reclaim abundance. And that is, I will be supported. That could be a huge part of it. And I'm not even saying this because I'm trying to sell to people, but it's because it's so multi-layered. That action that never ever does anything to take care of the self, to improve the self, but we are ready to buy the phones, to create the parties, but we won't take over our well-being. As a family, people will not come and contribute money for their ancestral healing, but will contribute money for the little cousin's birthday. Nothing wrong with celebrating the cousin's birthday, but it's just to show you our level of priority and how misguided it is, but just how disconnected we are from knowing that we can be supported, right? And that support is not so much about the healers who are available and so well trained to help you, but it's just the consciousness behind it. This is why generation after generations, it's the same patterns, because no one is leaping to say, I will be the person who creates new things. And that means I'm going to go learn. I'm going to go get the support I need. Right? Okay. Hello, Lerato. Yes, definitely you must join. Right? When would you know it's time to heal ancestral lineage? Honestly, if you are alive, it's time to heal your ancestral lineage. But in the case where you really want to know, I don't know, if you start being bothered by something in your life where it seems like it's just repeating. So for me, I wasn't even aware that I needed to do ancestral lineage healing on relationships until that comment from my mentor. And then after that, once I started to see, I was just like, I couldn't unsee it. It really bothered me that, guys, when I say the women were unmarried, I mean like 98%. It's bad. Interestingly now, the women are getting married. The women are getting in union because Joy went all in and healed. That lineage, I went so deep, y'all. You have no idea how every day that's all I was doing. I'll go to the grandmothers. Let's heal this. I will literally heal cousins who don't even know that I'm doing that for them. That's what I was doing, because I was like, this cannot be. This does not make sense. We are amazing, beautiful, gorgeous women. We deserve love. Right? So if you start being bothered by something, right, then yeah, you make that. Larato, I want to share with you that the first time I ever invested in my ancestral lineage, I was unemployed, just having started my healing work. And so did not have a lot of clients who were paying, and I was still building it. And I had to pay my mentor who was helping me with the money work, because that I was realizing I can't move forward until I deal with my money. So I was going to deal with my money. And I had to pay 8,000 rands every month for 6 months. So that was 48,000 rands that I had to pay. And honestly, the first time she told me this, I went a bit crazy in my mind. Like, that's a lot of money. What? I thought, oh my God, I'm not going to do it. But something told me, try. And 6 months after doing my work with Vangile, I literally made back that money. And it's like it's like so unbelievable to me. But more than anything is the healing that I received from working with them, particularly because we're doing ancestral trauma of my money. And I didn't even know how deep that work went. And it was so unbelievable. And that changed the trajectory of my life. My relationship with money is fundamentally changed forever. And I constantly refer to that work that I did with it. Like, I'm ever so grateful to them, right? So, so if you tell yourself that something, you're stuck because of this, please understand that's a covenant. Please understand that's a curse. That stuckness is a curse. You are locked in. Your DNA is playing out a pattern of lack. And so, to change a pattern, a curse, you have to break the pattern, which means you have to break your responses. If you keep doing the same thing, the curse will never be broken. So for me, once I started to deal with my love thing, I put myself out there, and I was never that girl. I literally had to put myself out there, literally had to pray every day and say, God, please give me a man who will love me, right? Literally had to become vulnerable, literally had to do the things that before I wouldn't do. And literally had to, for 1 year, work with one of my shamans. We're working on my love patterns. I had to pay for that because I knew I'm working with things, the principalities, things that are not of this earth, but they affect my earth experience, right? So all this not to say that you should bankrupt yourself if you do not have resources at all. You are on zero. Definitely don't do that. What I'm saying is, if you can look and say, is there a way for me? One of the questions I asked myself when I had to invest was, what do I need to do to create this 8,000 rands? And what it really needed was for me to actually start doing live streams and tell people about my work. And that's how I paid. I didn't have the money, and so I went to create the money. So that required that I do something that was so scary. If you all didn't know, live streaming was a very terrifying thing for me. I cried for a whole month once I realized I had to come and do live streams. Like, why? And I did it, and I got the 8,000 rands from people after they saw me. Do you see? That's what breaking an ancestral pattern is. You have to take a different action. You have to do the thing that's scary to you. You have to do the impossible. Right? You have to do the thing that no one has done before in your lineage. No one in my lineage is coming doing live streams. They are absolutely shocked by what I'm doing right now. But I chose to do something different. I had to take the first step, right? So, how long does the work take to complete? My partner will tell you that's the wrong question. He always says that. He's like, look at the question and ask yourself what part of your consciousness is so focused on the result that the only time you're going to make the move is if someone promises you the result. What happens if I can't promise you the result? Because we're working with the things of the divine. Unless you want me to lie, then that will make me a false prophet, and I tell you, oh, after 2 months, you would have broken all your curses. I will never be a false prophet, so I cannot lie. But what I can tell you is, if you come and do the work, and if so far I've seen that giving people a full year to focus on learning all these things helps the body to adjust, helps to build up someone's spiritual wealth. It really does. And the thing is, at the end of the day, it's still about you and God and you and your divine forces and your divine team. As Joy, I'm facilitating, I'm supporting you, I'm guiding you. That's the best I can do. But you must have the desire that no matter, even if it takes me a lifetime, I will break this. This curse, I will break it. So be it, right? And you should never ever desire that someone gives you an affirmation of what that's going to look like, because only you live your ancestors' curses, not Joy, right? Only you live the challenges and the pains and the suffering in your soul, right? So how can I come and dare tell you that your suffering will end by end of this year? How? That is false prophecy. I can't do that, right? Sorry, guys, I get really passionate. Let me see the questions. Okay. So how do generational curses of family breakdown be traced back to Egypt? Many times I've done ancestral lineage healing that go all the way back, not only to Egypt, to Atlantis, to Lemuria. That means 1,000,000 years back. Some of us are ancient souls and we've been here for a long time. And those curses, those miasmas, they are still in our fields. And we have to heal them. And in fact, a lot of priestesses, oracles, many of the curses and the vows and the covenants we are holding, that thing that's holding you back from leaping into your path as a healer, many of them come from Egypt. Because Egypt is the origin of when a lot of things went wrong for many of us right now in terms of our ancestry and particularly the spiritual heritage. There's a lot of covenants that many souls made in that timeline that we have to heal them. Can't tell you how many times I've had to heal Egyptian timelines. Literally there was a point in my life where in every session I was doing with my mentor, she's like, we're seeing 2 timelines here, Joy. 2 covenants here. Oh, Joy, you made this covenant and this one. Or this person who has come into your life, or that from Egypt. There is a contract you have with them. Let's deal with it. So, energy healing. This is the power of quantum healing, energy medicine. It allows you to travel that far off. So although I started this conversation saying I went to 7th generation, now I can go really back in the spirit realm. I'm able to do that after 6 years of doing this. Like I told you, as I said, it takes so much energy for me to do that, which is why my offers are, you may consider them expensive, is because the level of energy that I have to amass. I have to prepare 2 hours before you come to the session and 2 hours after you leave the session. So your session, which you have paid for 2 hours, is actually 6 hours, because I may have to travel to Egypt, right, to go and collect aspects of your covenants, aspects of your soul that are stuck there, of your ancestors that are stuck there that we have to bring, right? These are entombments, contracts, right, where your soul is in tombs. Remember those, what are they called, those Egyptians' tombs? Some people have their souls in those tombs, and we have to literally get your soul back from that. So it gets real deep in my sessions. Gets real deep. Okay, so how do you do that? Honestly, I don't know how you could really do that. I think you can be trained into this by your guides, but I personally had to be trained by 3 different mentors who were teaching me from different levels. Oh my God, yeah. Like that for me, my ability to do energy medicine has been a 3-year journey of training, consistently training. Even now, I'm still in training with one of my mentors. I'm learning bioregenesis from her. I'm still learning, how do I do this? How do I? Recently, I just learned to recode a specific DNA strand. I can go to the DNA number 4 and recode it. I didn't know how to do this. First of all, if I was listening to myself right now, I would think you are crazy. So if you think I'm crazy wherever you are, I get it. Because what I'm talking about does not make sense until you are in there and you're doing the thing. Right? Okay. Is it common to also question your sexuality during the initiation process? Okay. Have to clear a little bit. That question on Egypt kind of took me and opened my field a bit. And it, kind of took me out a bit. Let me drink my water. Okay. The question on sexuality. Oh, this is actually a very deep and important conversation that we definitely need to have, So my partner is a sexual alchemist. He can break this down for days. But the thing is that we have different energies and spirits, right, all around us. And so when we're being initiated, all of these energies, they rise up. They have to come up for you to balance them, right? So if we have that energy, masculine energy or feminine energy, that was, I'm still in spirit, right? So give me a minute as I'm trying to come back. Yes, oh, had to bring the whistle. Yeah. So that sexual confusion, because I just whistled, I'm not able to give you like a proper answer. I'm so sorry. But I have actually written about this in my newsletter. If you could go to my website and read the blogs, you can understand that. So what we're talking about here is sexual energy. And you have to understand, when we are initiating, we are actually raising up our sacral energy, our life force, right? And our life force is connected to the polarities of the masculine and the feminine, right? And so, whatever aspects, it could be many things. It could be literally ancestral spirits that are around you that are coming from a different gender or so, and they can influence you if you haven't yet grounded, right? Sorry. And then it could also be your soul energy, right? Especially if the life that's active, that's bleeding through into your life, is of that either the same gender or what you were the opposite gender, and now you're finding suddenly yourself attracted to a different gender that you were before initiation. So it's because of the rising of energy, and these energies are coming up for healing. They're coming up for you to heal them and then to integrate them. So the confusion is just really to show you what's happening in the inner realms of your being, right? And the idea, the advice I would give you is to not take them as a final statement of your sexuality, but more of, this is rising up, I must address it, right? And after you've addressed it, you've healed it, you've purified it, then it will be really clear what your sexuality is, or your sexual preferences is, right? So a lot of the time people misread and misunderstand that it could be inner child stuff coming up, soul stuff coming up, ancestral stuff coming up, and sometimes even multi-dimensional stuff coming up, cosmic stuff coming up. So so just allow yourself to process it and sit on it and interrogate what could be the source of that. So is it possible for one to be desensitized sexually? Desensitized sexually, like you are not interested in sex or what? Let me know. So you're also asking, how does one prepare themselves for such sessions without feeling as if you're conjuring spirits that might disrupt your lineage or just bring more confusion or warfare? I mean, this is a great question. The answer is always anchor in God and in the Christ, right? And in the beginning, most of us, we just have to say these invocations. There is the law of consent that most humans don't know about. Spirits, it does not matter what spirits are. They are literally binded by the law of consent, which is a prime directive. They are not meant to interfere with human affairs unless we consent them to. So what they do is they create confusion so that you consent to. This is why if you just are not very clear about what you're doing, if you say, I'm just calling my ancestors, and a spirit comes and says, I'm my ancestor, it can use that as, you gave me the consent to come through. You were not very clear what you were asking for. Which is why in my initiation protocols, please watch that. I really explain how to approach these practices, right? We have to understand we are sovereign beings. So when something is messing up with you, there is something there that we have to first look within ourselves, right? And yes, sometimes spiritual warfare goes beyond you. It's an ancestral thing, and it's a soul thing. It comes from other past lives and so on. That is understandable. But also in that same vein, if a spirit comes and you have conjured it, this is very difficult for people to understand. But my mentors used to say this to me, and maybe this applies to healers more than anything. If you've conjured up a bad spirit and you did all the protocols and you followed them and you're still in warfare, there is a high chance that that spirit has come through because you need that spirit for you to heal. So at some point in your journey, you may have to go into the underworld. You may have to go through that. That's what dark arts training is for. So in my apprenticeship, I teach you dark arts training because it's almost impossible to never ever encounter a bad spirit in the spiritual realm. I mean, it's also possible you may never do that, but think of it as in life. In life, you will meet people who will hurt you, people who will come through, no matter how nice and kind and good you are. Right? And sometimes that's part of the lesson. Sometimes actually God wills it. Sometimes your ancestors wills it that this spirit has to come in for you to awaken to something, for you to reactivate your ability to imagine people who their job is actually they're shadow workers that are meant to fight this spirit. How would you learn how to fight it if you never encounter them? Right? Like I said, this particularly, what I'm saying applies to healers. Right? If you are just a non-healer, you don't have to go conjure spirits because you won't have the training to know how to navigate that. But as a healer, you can't move in the world with fear. Right? If you move in the world with fear, you never go out. If you say, what if I go outside and someone grabs me? That may happen, right? But we have to do the precautions. We have to make sure we don't go out at night. We have to call the Uber. We have to tell our friends, whatever. Right? So you do the same thing with your spiritual practice. But if it does happen, in my journey, I've encountered, no matter how many times I have cleansed and done all the things, there are times where I have to encounter that spirit. In fact, I'm almost afraid to visit South Africa because that happens to me all the time whenever I come to South Africa. I can cleanse all the day, but my first night, all the time when I'm in South Africa, it's spiritual warfare 101. And now I'm at a point where I'm like, okay, I'm supposed to see this, so let me face it. I'm a warrior, I will face it. Right? So the idea is don't move with fear in the spirit realm. You can't move with fear. You have to know, yes, of course, you have to build your resources. You have to learn and go for training if you don't have the training. But if you are a non-healer, you're asking, this is where the question comes. Sometimes you can't just heal by yourself because you don't want to conjure spirits because you may not have the training to know what to do with that. And I know when I was when I didn't know what I know, I wouldn't believe me. I would think Joy is being very intense unnecessarily. I think she's making a big deal out of things. It's not that serious. There was that version of me. But it is serious, y'all. So there are certain things, like to cleanse yourself, this is how you make sure that you don't conjure spirits. Just focus on yourself. Trying to go heal an ancestor in the 7th century could be really, very intense if you don't have the training. All right? Hope that makes sense. So the spiritual babes. Spiritual babes, yearnings, that really often you starting to sense the spirits around you, not just spirits, but also spiritual energy or psychic energies around people. So when you begin to meditate, you begin to do spiritual practices, that begins to open up what we call your psychic senses. You start to sense things that before you couldn't sense. And so you will start to burp, you start to yawn because you're starting to sense energies around people, energies around you. Right? So that's where those burps comes from. They are not related to being initiated. That's just a byproduct of your senses coming online. Whether it's you are a clear empath, you can feel energies around you, or you can know that that begins to reflect itself through the burping and the yawnings, right? It just means you are highly sensitive, so you have sensory perception, right? I have noticed, it's just my own observation because I teach people, so I do psychic development, I help people develop their senses, right? That with BEPs, we are often sensing earth energy, earth spirits, right? And those who tend to yawn are often sometimes sensing universal primordial energy, isuthunya, right? You find that those who BEPs are shamanic, they may have a shamanic template, right? Ubungoma, Sangoma, shamanic energy healing, right? That's not always true, but that's what I've noticed. And then those who yawn tend to have the priestess oracle energy, right? Yes. Can you heal us when you are far in South Africa and in Botswana? Yes, because the spirit realm does not reside in South Africa and Botswana, right? As I mentioned, I do energy work in the spirit realm. The spirit realm is not located in a physical place like here. So for me to connect with your ancestors anywhere in the world is because the ancestors are not moving like we do. The ancestors are not located in your land. They may be obviously attuned to your land, sure. I am sure that actually, for sure, healing with me physically is more powerful than doing it online, for sure. Because you will be entering the same field as me physically as well. So that creates a more powerful experience, right? Which is why I'm starting to do some of my training. The apprenticeship program has where you have to come here for me to do certain practices with you, activations with you, right? But it is not a limitation at all, really. Especially what I'm talking about, what I do, it's not, right? Yeah, hope that makes sense. Okay. I hope that was so helpful. Did I answer everyone? Are we good? So if we are desensitized sexually, could this be part of generational trauma? Yes, it could be part of generational trauma, and sometimes even your own trauma, soul trauma and childhood trauma as well. So you may look in all levels of the self, and also you may actually somewhere underneath that could also be a gift that you can have a neutral understanding of sexual energy. It may be a gift that needs to be developed. Yeah. What about those who hear whistles in their ears? Are these our blood ancestors or not? So hearing whistles in your ears could actually mean many different things, right? There is definitely where it is connected to clairaudience, which is a psychic sense, where spiritual information travels through the ears to you, right? And it could definitely be blood ancestors and elemental ancestors, as well as ancient ancestors and cosmic angelic ancestors as well, could be communicating with you through the ears. But it also is connected to your spiritual heritage as well, right? Like I whistle and my people are mountain people, and that means we're also the bad people. And even spiritually, cosmically, when I trace that, I map that, I can see why I whistle, right? In South Africa, they will say, oh, Joy, you have Abalozi spirits. And there is a component of that which is a blood thing, because yes, my people are connected to the Lozi nation just from a DNA level, and also the spirits beyond just the blood of the Abalozi spirits, the elemental spirits, right? So it could also be connected to that. And sometimes it's actually psychic interference. You are literally hearing a psychic interference. It's not necessarily always a message. Sometimes there is a block happening. So it's something that you have to learn to discern what the difference is. The messages, how they feel in your ear, and when it's interference or something else entirely. Right. One of the things that it can be really overwhelming when you learn this, that we should never ever think one thing means something absolutely in the spirit realm. It doesn't work like that. We want it to, but it doesn't work like that, right? The spirit realm is multidimensional. Even you are multidimensional. So we can't expect one thing to always be this, right? Which is why you have to have a certain level of curiosity and just a certain level of, okay, I'm going to interrogate this rather than assume I know. Right? Which is why we get so stuck as human beings into what does it all mean? Oh my God, it means this. Oh, what does that mean? You know, and that helps. I love mapping like any other person. You should map all of these things, but just know that open yourself up for the miracle and the mysteries of God. They are there all the time. And that's how we grow. Right? Yay. Generational curses teaching was very powerful. How does one who's not a healer and nor initiated start the journey to heal and work to remove that from the ancestral DNA mainframe? Honestly, I mean, I have actually shared what to do. I think maybe you were not here. The things you can start with. But what I was talking about, ancestral DNA mainframe, going into that, these are things that I personally had to be taught how to do. And I had to be initiated, and I've been in this initiation for 6 years now. So, and that's on top of already being a healing artist. Before that, I was a psychologist, right? So just the level of cultivation I've had to do to even be able to teach the way that I teach. I don't want to underestimate that. Right? So don't overwhelm yourself with, I gotta go teach, I gotta go heal the mainframe. Oh my God, Joy told me this. I speak this way because I'm here to deliver codes, information, and I'm speaking to your spirit. I'm speaking to your future self. One day you will understand it, and one day you'll be able to do what I'm talking about. So don't stress about doing it now, right? Accept where you are with what you are able to do, and if you are able to do some aspects, do that. If not, get support, work with a healer, right, for them to help you with that, right? So if you want to begin, for those who are really interested in doing this, I do have sessions, once-off sessions that you can book, and I can begin to support you with that. I cannot highlight this. I will never, ever, ever work for free, beloved warriors. That would be really crazy. I'm saying this because people be sending me messages like, is this free? Like, that would not make sense. I'm literally doing these free teachings for free. How can the sessions be free as well? It's been mind-boggling. So I just had to come and clear this. Like I said, it takes so much of my energy to do what I do, and I love my work, and I'm really good at it. But yeah, so you have to meet me there, and you have to be ready to do that or commit, you know. But if not, please replay. You will definitely hear what I said about what you can begin doing. Okay. Okay, 2 more questions. Would you really advise someone who has never encountered such energy healing that you provide to really get into doing this work to unlock that understanding into spirituality? So the reason why my membership program is a 1-year program is because I'm not going to go to your ancestral DNA mainframe on session 1, because I would know that your capacity will not be able to do that, right? I take you step by step. My students can tell you that 8 months into working with me, they're like, oh my God, Joy, now I'm able to do that, right? When I did the membership years ago, I actually channeled the whole year. It was my spirit guide that created the curriculum. I didn't come up with it. They showed me how to initiate or take someone through the journey of ancestral healing through a 1-year protocol, right? So that you are not overwhelmed, so that you are not like, you know, you know. So I take it, that's why it's a 1-year program for $85, which is insanely cheap, right? For me to help you do this in a way that is really supportive and not overwhelming and safe for you and doesn't take you to places, false ascension maps that you don't want to be in. Yeah. So I was telling my student, lately I've been having sessions with people I've worked with, and when I shared earlier that I was able to go into the DNA mainframe, that was a client I've been working with for a year. I can't do that for a beginner, right? I have to wait a bit because I know your consciousness can't do that yet, right? So that's part of what I'm also training healers to understand. We can't just take people into the deep, dark thing. And this is why there is so much confusion in the spiritual realm, because a person wakes up and they go activate that third eye and they don't know what they're doing. And next thing, you start having spiritual warfare happening because you skipped some steps, right? Knowledge is one thing. The activations, the actual processes is another. And we have to honor where everyone is at, right? Yeah. This is why I have different courses, one for those who are beginning and one for those who are healers, so that I can support you differently with where you are at. Okay. Hope that makes sense. Okay. So when there is mental illness pattern in a family that spans across 3 generations, what are pattern of the sort linked to, and can it be healed? No, but you're asking a really, really important, and it's actually a very personal question of mine, because I come from a lineage with the masculine having mental illnesses, and it really deeply disturbs me, right? And I have been actively looking into that. Actually, that's part of why I enrolled for psychology, because I have an uncle who has a mental illness and has not been well since 97. He's like kind of like my beginning story. And I've been trying to really understand what happens with mental illness. And there's a lot there that I'm really, really discovering that honestly it will require an entire masterclass on mental illnesses, right? But definitely there are some covenants, ancestral covenants in there. And often with mental illnesses, certain things, we are actually often talking about blood covenants, which are really hard to heal and to release, because often, we are working with blood covenants, are working with principalities, with spirits sometimes, and that's a very difficult. It's not an ancestor who made that covenant, or it's an ancestor who made that covenant not with themselves but with another spirit, a dark force spirit, so it can be really difficult to heal those mental illnesses, which is why we can see our family members stuck for a really long time without healing. We take them to ZCC, we take them to all the healers, and nothing happens, because we are dealing with, and sometimes it's an ancient curse, and it's an ancient, covenant, like I said. And so these are questions I ask God all the time, like, can I do something? I pray every day to be taught how to heal that. It deeply distresses me. Part of, like I said, why I studied mental disorders and psychology was because of that, right? So right now, I can't heal mental illnesses, like especially a psychotic, when it's like onset and it's happening with a person and they've been there for a while, right? I am interrogating what's happening, and I could say a lot, honestly, on what I have discovered. And there are some healings I've done for my family members who have mental illnesses. I've healed their consciousnesses, engaged with their souls, done a bit of what I can. But one day I really truly will love to know and practice and actually heal mental illness. It's like a big dream of mine. So thank you for asking that. That's where I think as healers we need to be thinking and thinking more deeply. Can our work actually bring results? Instead of it just like, oh, people feel better, can we actually reverse mental illnesses? I believe, yes, we can, by the way. I believe it's hard work, though. And it's work that requires not only that person, but that entire ancestral lineage to come and help that soul. I think it's possible. I don't think there's anything that can't be healed. I think that God can heal anything, right? Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everyone. If this spoke to you, please check out my membership. If this is like where you're like, I really have to do this, I will invite you to check out the membership. If you are a healer, check out the apprenticeship program. And if you want to do one-on-one You can also send me a DM and I will be sharing with that. This process has been really helpful for me because I've been understanding what you need as a community. So I'm going to be creating new offers to meet you where you are, right? Coming soon as well once we finish enrollment, in terms of like once-off programs or sessions that you can do one time, and then, you know, if you're not able to invest in a long-term process, right? Thank you everyone for joining. I will see you on Thursday. This is the last week actually where we are enrolling. So I encourage you, if you have been thinking about this, to start doing that as soon as you can. Marcos.